I guess I'll start this video off with a warning that if you aren't level 30 yet, and if you are not in World Tier 5 yet, which right now nobody is, do not craft any items except for weapon mods. Why is that? Well, that's because the materials that you would use to craft lower level or even level 30 lower gear score items are the same crafting materials that you're eventually going to use on the top tier items. And so if you want to save up as many crafting materials as possible for the end game, you don't want to waste those same crafting materials now. Because, you know, at the end of the day, the end game is where the builds really start to matter. At level 20, you don't really have to care about it too much because whatever you craft, it will be irrelevant just a few hours from now because you'll be level 23, level 24, level 29. And then at that point, the level 20 item that you crafted or picked up, it's not going to be useful to you anymore, but you still wasted the crafting materials. So yeah, whatever you do not craft items yet. Wait for World Tier 5 to come out, and the only exception you have is with the weapon mods. Now, why would you craft the weapon mods? Well, that's because weapon mods in this game are no longer part of the loot pool. You cannot pick up weapon mods anymore as rewards from killing a boss or something. You simply have to unlock all the weapon mods in the game, and then you always have them with you in your inventory. And then you can use them whenever you want. So when you get a weapon mod blueprint, it means you just gotta go to the crafting station, craft it once, and then you will never use that blueprint again. So if you do it early on, you'll still have it in the late game. And no matter when you craft the weapon mods at level 4 or at level 30, they're always going to have the same stats as well. So that's not something you have to worry about either. With that out of the way though, which is probably the most important thing you gotta take away from this video, I did also want to take a look at the new crafting system and the new Recalibration Station to see what's up with it, how it works, what's changed and what is still the same from the Division 1. Because yeah, even the blueprints and the way that the Recalibration Station works, they're a lot different in the sequel. Instead of the blueprints coming with a set level and you collecting those blueprints during the campaign, all the blueprints that you'll get while playing, they'll actually scale up with the player level. So if you're level 5 and you get a blueprint, then that blueprint is going to be level 5. But then you play a little bit more, you're going to get level 18. And then you come back to the crafting station and then that same blueprint is also level 18. There is one thing that doesn't really scale with the player though, and that is the rarity of the blueprints. When you start off playing, all of the blueprints that you'll ever get are going to be of the specialized rarity, which is the blue color in a division. And the only way to be able to craft purple items, and eventually also high-end items, is to upgrade the crafting bench. Yeah, in a Division 2, you're gonna have to upgrade the bench now. That's also a new feature. To upgrade the bench, you'll need materials, the same materials that you've been collecting to craft items. It's just that you're gonna need a lot more of those. And you're going to have to upgrade your bench multiple times. First, to go from blue to purple gear, then from purple to high-end gear, and then you'd think it's over, but no, as you go up in world tiers, you also have to keep upgrading your crafting bench to be able to craft higher gear score items. When you get to high end, you then need to upgrade the crafting bench to world tier 1, which then allows you to craft gear with a higher gear score. And it will keep going and going and going like that, costing more materials each time. And if you want to farm for something, if you want to prepare for the end game, my tip to you is to try to get this crafting bench as high of a level as possible so that when World Tier 5 drops and you do Tidal Basin and advance to World Tier 5, you're instantly able to craft some of the items that you want. So instead of spending your crafting materials on crafting weapons and gear pieces, you want to spend them first on crafting all the weapon mods and afterwards on upgrading your crafting station. That's what you want to do. Do not craft anything else. But yeah, it wouldn't be a full crafting guide if I also didn't go over the materials that you'll need for crafting, so I'm just going to go over them. We first have the two basic materials, the gray colored ones, and they're pretty easy. You get these almost everywhere. You can even get these from simply deconstructing any gear that you find, and you'll need these two base materials for almost everything that you craft. Then we have the green materials, and these are a little bit more tricky, but they're also still very widely available because these mostly drop from NPCs. If you get a special perk at the base of operation, you can even get these from deconstructing gear as well. It's this perk over here, just unlock this and you'll be able to get it from gear. But the thing with these green materials is that they drop more often from specific NPC factions. So, for example, let's take a look at steel. The description here reads that this material is valued by the True Sons, which means that killing True Sons will mostly give you steel. And the same goes for ceramics. You can get those by killing Outcast. And then there's also polycarbonate, which mostly comes from the hyenas. And because these crafting materials drop from specific factions, farming for these materials is actually quite easy. For example, if I want to get more ceramics, well, what do? Well, I simply play a mission or go to a control point in the open world that's under the control of the Outcast. And then as a reward for, completing that mission or doing that side activity, I get some ceramics. So basically, if I'm missing one of these 3 materials, I'm just going to go after the faction that values that material, and I'll be decked out in that material quite fast actually, especially if I also loot some stuff on the way there. The blue materials, they work very much in the same way as the green ones. They also drop when killing specific NPC factions, except they don't drop as often, and they're also not always given as a reward for completing an activity, and they're actually quite hard to farm because of that. Titanium comes from the Outcasts, the electronics comes from hyenas, and carbon fiber comes from the True Sons. So you would say that killing these factions yields you the most of these crafting materials, but I actually found that because they're so rare, the best way to get these crafting materials is running around in the open world, just looting bags, and actually also playing missions against the Black Tusk. Because at the end game, that faction actually drops a lot of all the blue crafting materials, and just killing the Black Tusk is faster than killing any of the other factions for the materials. I found that especially titanium is a pretty valuable resource, as you do not only need it to upgrade your crafting bench, but you also need it to craft almost every weapon mod in the game, to craft weapons, and then also to recalibrate weapons. So whenever I wanted to do something, I always found myself needing more titanium before anything else. Then we also have this printer filament, which is something that a lot of players have been asking me about, but it is simply a material that you get when deconstructing mods for your gear and your skills. That's how you get it. So I would just recommend everybody to deconstruct almost all the mods that they get for their gear and their skills, because most of the ones you find during the leveling process aren't that great anyway. And you'll get a lot of this material for deconstructing them, which you're gonna need at the end game if you wanna craft mods for your skills that actually matter. There are also high-end materials. Actually, there are way more high-end materials than any other material in the game. Look at all these different ones right here. We have a different material for each branded set, and you'll need those materials to craft stuff from that specific set. So if you want to craft Badger Tough gear, you need Badger Tough crafting materials. And if you want to craft Araldi Holdings, you'll need Araldi Holdings crafting materials. And if you want to craft Douglas and Harding gear, you'll need Douglas and Harding specific crafting materials, and so on and on and on and on. So for each brand set that you want to craft, you'll need a specific component for it, so to speak. And the way that you get those components, it's pretty straightforward because it's also by deconstructing gear from that specific brand set. So if you deconstruct Douglas and Harding, you'll get a Douglas and Harding crafting material piece, so to speak. So that's how the high-end materials work. We have a lot of them, but it's pretty straightforward. Before you can craft branded gear though, you'll still need to get the blueprints for that specific branded gear, just like with everything else, and you can get these blueprints at vendors in the game. You can get them as rewards for helping out settlements, and I'm sure there are a lot more ways to earn more blueprints, but as of now, World Tier 5 is still locked, and I haven't really explored all the activities yet. I haven't even been to the Dark Zone yet, which I'm sure is a place that will get blueprints as well. So I'll get back to you on all the blueprints after we're a little bit further into the game and I've had time to explore the game a little more. And that's pretty much it for crafting, which means it's time to take a few steps to the right of this room and check out the new Recalibration Station, because the old Recalibration Station from the Division 1 is gone. And it has been replaced by something that works in quite a different way. Instead of simply spending your money to pick one stat on your gear and then reroll that over and over and over again until you get the right stat roll, you now have to find another weapon or gear piece that has the same stat that you want, and then use that gear piece to transfer the stat over. Transferring a stat still costs money and materials. As I said, if you want to transfer a weapon stat or a weapon talent, you're gonna need the titanium as well. And the process itself does actually destroy the item that you take the stat from. So you have to sacrifice a whole item just to get one stat on another piece of gear. But on the plus side, you now know exactly what you're going to get before you recalibrate your weapon or your gear piece, because you can pick and choose the stat that you want and then transfer it over. So there's a positive to this and a negative. It's a little bit of give and take. Some players might prefer the system from the Division 1. Some players might prefer this system. I think that this system is a little better because, yes, there are some limitations in place. For example, you can only transfer stats or talents from one weapon to another if those two weapons fall into the same category. So for an assault rifle, if I want to transfer a talent, I need another assault rifle and get the talent from that. SMGs, also only to SMGs, and so on and so on. And it's the same for the gear pieces. If I want to have a stat on a chest piece, I'll need to get another chest piece and then get the stat from there. And also, you cannot recalibrate crafted items. I've got this chest piece here that I crafted, and I've got this M4 here that I crafted. I can't recalibrate either of them. For the weapon, I just simply don't have the materials anymore because I already spent them all. But for the chest piece, you can see that I have the materials, but it simply says item cannot be recalibrated. So that's because I crafted this one. Also something to keep in mind. So yeah, there are a lot of limitations to this new system, but I feel like it's a cool system because it means that if you want that one last stat on your gear piece, you're gonna have to farm for an item that has that stat, and then, only then, after you get it, you can transfer it over. Last thing I'll touch upon is that, yes guys, the optimization station from the Division 1 is gone as well. So you cannot just get the perfect god-rolled gear anymore if you throw enough Division tech at it. And this is something that I actually like as well, because I felt that after patch 1.8, almost any gear piece was automatically a god roll because you just needed the right stats. And then you could even swap one out with the recalibration station. And then you can just dump a whole bunch of Division tech into it to optimize it, so to speak, and get the perfect god roll build. So this kind of forces you to keep playing the game and grinding for gear if you want that perfect build, so to speak, which you'll never truly get. But I guess that's what the game is all about. And that pretty much sums up the whole video about crafting. I think I covered everything. Crafting materials, recalibration. If there's any questions, just let me know. And as always, guys, I'll see you all later. Or, like they say in the Netherlands, zie je later.